Welcome to the Ailm Practice Education Series in partnership with Firm Media, delivering concise and impactful insights for aesthetic and specialty medical practices. Your host, Chris Solhonik.
Today we have a special guest, Tami Vileta, CEO of Pinpoint Creative. Tami, welcome to the show and thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, how you ended up here and what you do?
Sure. So I own what we call branding and client lifecycle marketing agency, and that's a mouthful. But where we usually start is branding for clients. I was not always in the business of aesthetics. I started my career with much larger, I call them legacy agencies in California, working on, accounts like Macy's and Dreyer's Grand Light and Intel, those types of organizations. And our agency was very niche in the work that we did. So Salesforce programs for forces of, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people, HR programs, trade shows. And we were working with the branding agencies of those large entities. And so very early in my career as a creative director, began to really appreciate branding for how it is just woven into every single detail of a company, straight through to everything that they do. And after about 10 years in that career, and when I was starting a family, it just became really difficult to keep up the agency rat race. And so by that time, I'd gained enough experience and decided to freelance. I had moved to Seattle and decided I just wanted a couple of clients. And I answered an ad in a newspaper in 1999. It was a woman who owned an agency here in Seattle, a small niche agency, and it was purely based in aesthetics. I knew nothing about aesthetics. I didn't know what Botox was or anything of that nature. But she needed help. Their agency represented the websites for over 500 clients, and those clients needed branding. And that was something I understood. And so we partnered very well together, and I white labeled for her agency for almost 20 years. Learned a ton, met a lot of amazing humans and practitioners across the country. And when she sold her agency back in 2018, I decided to open Pinpoint. It was right before COVID. I hired my first employee the month that everything shut down. And here we are today. And our agency, again, is very different. We are branding, and then we do life cycle marketing. So what we don't do is social media or website design. But everything else a practice needs to get on down the road: consultation materials, patient education, event marketing, membership marketing, surprise and delight, just regular communications with existing customers. We kind of service that end of the business. So it's a great partnership. What's there not to love about marketing and branding and aesthetics? I mean, it's luxury, it's beautiful, it's ever changing, it's innovative. And so it's just been a perfect marriage of having the branding education first and then getting introduced into aesthetics about 2 decades ago.
Wow. So you and I have a few things in common. I was in the music business for about 10 years. And the way I got started is I worked with some of the largest traditional marketing agencies in the country as a result of that. I got some funding from some people to have an independent label that was distributed internationally. And because of that, I got to work with marketing teams from VH1, EMI Music Publishing, Capitol Records, Universal Music. And those are the ways that I started to figure out how marketing really worked.
Yeah.
I segued over to plastic surgeons when the internet came along, and that paved my way here.
And it's, I think, really amazing to work with large, global corporations first, and then to be able to take what you've learned and scale it back to smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, and bring that same level of expertise. It's a really, fun pathway.
Yeah, I often say that musicians, when they first get their record deal, is the only industry where they used to give them millions of dollars for some product that was relatively unknown, and most of the products would flop. And then I moved over to plastic surgeons, who then wanted the same quality of product for a lot less money.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's been a fun journey, because I think being in that industry where quality was high end was expected, you can't, I don't even physically know how to deliver something that isn't high end. And I can see that in you.
You can't unsee it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people often, I used to be the director of marketing and publicity for Brainstorm Artists International. And there was a year where we worked with an artist that won a Grammy. And the next day when I came into work, you could feel that we had all changed.
Yeah.
And what I like to tell people is that we touched greatness. And once you touch greatness, you can't work with people that don't want to.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. I never thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know the format of the show. The format of the show is for me to ask you 3 questions about what you do, but not just so that we can hear your answers, specifically so that you can tell our listeners how you can help them solve problems. This is what the whole show is about. Practice Education Series. So I'm going to ask those 3 questions. At the end, I'm going to ask for your home run takeaway, and then we're going to hop out. So you ready to get started?
I'm ready. Bring it.
You've helped practices create some incredible event experiences. What makes live events such an effective marketing tool for fee-for-service practices in today's digital-heavy landscape?
Gosh, such a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is, number one, they are personal. You can really grow community and a tribe with your events because people are actually in the practice. And what other medium can you utilize for a cost that's going to bring somebody and showcase your entire practice in front of them for 30 minutes to an hour? I mean, there isn't a way that you could spend money with any other medium in order to have that happen. And then all of a sudden, now you have that with maybe 200 people, 150, 300 people, and you've just got a live audience who's there paying attention to you for, however long you can keep them. So I love events for that purpose, as well as a bunch of others. So I believe that events really have the ability to grow patient loyalty. Too many practices don't really think of it in that way. They're putting on an event maybe because they feel like they have to have one, or, they have something to introduce. But clients can really become loyal to practices through events, and so can your staff. It really can bond your team. It can help your team and your patients to engage with you better. I also think that events really enable practices to build their brand. And when I speak about events at shows and at society meetings, this is something I really want audience members to take away. Your events are a brand asset. Just like your logo, just like your website, just like your social media, you can create your events and do it through, time so that they build on one another. And as you're doing it, you're also building your brand. Patients expect it. They, are excited to go to the next one. And it really helps to build your brand story. So I want people to think about events in that way. I also think that events can really do a great job in increasing client referrals. So especially if you're asking your attendees to bring a new friend, it can really put you out in front of new patients. If you do your event marketing correctly, you don't just have the same blood coming through the door every single time in the same exact audience. By using some really great marketing methods and tools, business to business partnerships, community partnerships, influencers, even just boots on the street, you can really get new patients to come into your events. And not enough practices really do focus on that. They're just using their email database and their social media, and they're attracting the same people every time, but you can get a lot of new people to come in as well. I also think that events really, this is another thing I don't think practices think enough about. Trust, credibility, your status as an expert in the community, those can all really be solidified through events and the way that you conduct them. They're not just a big party. You're not just there putting them on. You're really starting to build, that relationship and that trust message out to your community as well. So those are some of the reasons why I absolutely love event marketing as a tool in the marketing box for practices to utilize.
I love that answer. What you kept making me think of was these things you're talking about are the essence of networking. Right? It's why networking works so well. And I don't think that practices are taught anything about, I have some things I do locally here in the community. And because of that, I live in a very small community. It's a college town. The chamber is very active. So I go to the chamber meeting just to make sure that I'm seen in the community, but I'm the trusted advisor for, I only do specialty medical marketing, but if there's anybody locally who's a PhD who's working on some sort of thing they're working on, I'm the guy they talk to, right? Positions me as an expert. I think that would naturally happen with a med spa or a plastic surgeon or something like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Okay, question number 2. What are the essential elements of a successful patient-facing event from concept to follow-up?
Oh boy, soup to nuts. When we meet with practices who have an interest in putting together an event marketing plan or a plan for a specific event, the first thing that we want to do is get strategy out. And that is something that a lot of practices miss, right? They're not being strategic about their events, just like they would be about, their SEO or their, paid ad campaigns. What do you want to get out of this event? Why are you having it? And there's so many different reasons, right? You can have an event to launch a product or a new service line. You can have an event to launch providers or introduce providers, a membership program. Maybe you're just, introducing your practice. It's a grand opening. So you really want to sit down and get on paper what it is that you're trying to accomplish with this event. And when you have that as a consensus, that makes it very much easier to plan that event. Be super intentional about timing, right? So we've seen practices make mistakes in just planning their event during the summer, which is not what you want to do, or putting it on a weekend when your community may not support that, or, planning it on a Friday night when there's a football game in town, so really be intentional about how you're picking your time for your event and also staffing it with enough people so that your audience can be addressed. Marketing your event. This is another one that I just get on my soapbox for early in the marketing process. We have a lot of practitioners come to us and they want to try to put together an event in 3 weeks' time or a month's time. And we just won't do that. We start 8 weeks before, because by 1 month, you should be able to start your marketing plan. So we want that full month buffer to really get the creative right, the messaging right, all the tools right, so that we can launch them 4 weeks before your event. So really pay attention. Those are some of the early things: strategy, intentional with timing, and just starting early enough to get all of your marketing plan out. Once you do start marketing, I think that practices make a mistake in not using every channel that's at their disposal. So they'll do a decent job of emailing their database and, maybe putting it up on social media. But what about the point of purchase? What about on your website? As new visitors come to your site, they should know you have something going on. What about in your community? In local venues and with the chamber, with influencers, with business partners. There's so many ways that you can get your event out in front of people without just the big two of email marketing and social media. So those are some really, and then in terms of like planning to get new patients, we really want to inspire practices that when you have an event, at least half of your audience should be new patients. So you really have to have a different kind of marketing plan to do that, right? That's going to require more paid ads. It's going to require more exposure in the community in order to do that, or referrals or word of mouth flow. Another really big one is buttoning down your logistics for your event. I think too many practices don't staff their event with enough people to really make sure that, number one, the audience doesn't get frustrated, right? People need to know where you want them to go, what you want them to do, what you would like them to spend money on. And if they don't know those things and it's not well communicated during the event and there's not staff to inform them, then the event's going to be disconnected, disjointed, isn't, going to flow very well. We've actually been to a couple of events. This happened recently here in Seattle. It was super tragic. She had 300 attendees. One person was manning the till. Wow. And there's a line. That's not what you want to have happen. You do not want to have anybody leave Don't create, a point of frustration in collecting money. So make
Wow.
sure that that process is buttoned down and you do have it staffed, or have ways to not frustrate patients when they're there. Yeah, so those are some of the main things. And then, another thing that we really want practices to do is to realize that marketing for your event needs to keep excitement going all the way through the marketing plan. Too many practices will start a marketing plan, do a save the date, and then they'll just relaunch that same message over and over again leading up to the event. We really try to change the message and add points of excitement and bells and whistles, so that anybody who's RSVP'd early isn't going to drop off your list in the end. It would be really tragic if you had 100 RSVPs and only 20 people show through the door. And so really keeping that interest high all the way across the marketing plan is so important. And doing follow-up marketing in the event and after the event is over is so important. So, great example. We did an event for a client last year, and they didn't staff their event with enough people. So they were able to collect $150,000 during the event. But just by keeping their marketing plan opened for the next week after it was done, and sending out a thank you blast and sending out, a social post afterwards, they were able to collect another $125,000 after the event doors
Wow.
had closed, just by continuing the marketing plan after the event was over, and almost doubled their revenue. So it's just so important to think that the marketing needs to be before, during, and after the event to really make it function all the way through and to get the most you can out of that effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Question. This dawned on me that our listeners might not know, because we were talking about maybe the chamber and things like that, which what flashes in my mind is this is a grand opening event. But then there's other types of events like fillers and things like that, right? What can you give me give our listeners some ideas about the types
About
of
event
events?
styles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's when you do an event marketing plan for the year. We usually like to do calendar planning with our clients, and certain types of events are great for certain functions. So a patient appreciation event is what we would call an exposure event. That's an event you're going to want pretty much anybody to come to that's qualified to buy from you, right? Those are
Yes.
large style events. But you might be launching something that is a little bit more, audience focused. Like, say you buy an Emsella or, vaginal rejuvenation or something of that nature. You might want to do something much more focused and smaller scale, like a sales event is what we call that, where your attendee list, if you get to 20, that's great. You might take deposits, so you're really getting highly qualified clients who are very interested in that service, and you are doing mini consults essentially during that event. But you can close excellent amount of revenue with a small audience if you have a qualified marketing plan. So sales events, exposure events. Webinars are another tool that I think practices could be very successful with. We work with Dr. Barry DiBernardo, a KOL in the industry. He's had plenty of webinars. A lot of them have been on procedures of the face. They're themed, but your audience can be national, and his practice supports, people coming in for destination surgery.
Sure.
And so, I mean, we've had 600 people on his webinars before.
Wow.
Which is fantastic. But I think, happen to think hair restoration would be a great, topic. Vaginal rejuvenation. There's so many topics where people don't actually want to be in an audience, but a webinar would be a really great tool for that. Lunch and learns. Those are awesome collaboration events where you're aligning with potentially a business partner in your community, and you're tag teaming their audiences. So your audience supports their business and their audience supports yours. You could do collabs. We've even seen a lot of charitable cause events where practices have a booth or a tent for that cause in that community. There's so many different kinds of event styles. And the thing is I don't think practices should just utilize one, right? You have so many different things going on in your practice on an annual basis. Mix up your event styles, see what really resonates. I mean, also, when your surgeon's out for 2 weeks, you could have a day of treatment event for your providers. So it's, a time slot, it's a Botox event, it's, specific. They again have to pay a deposit. They're coming in for a treatment. So many different event styles that you can kind of play with to put your marketing plan together.
Right, right.
That help?
No, it really does. It really does. That was way more than I thought you were going to give me. So, which I think is great, because there's just so many ideas there, right? Lunch and learns, things you don't even have to invite people to, with webinars.
Yeah.
I think the hair restoration one, because that's common. There's a lot of people that need hair restoration and don't really know what that means. And there's a lot of different types, and some look fake and some look real and some look great, right? So,
and it's emotionally charged. I mean, in terms of, the person, especially for men, it's maybe not something that they want to walk around in an audience,
Mhm.
and so I think it's a great lunch or a great webinar topic for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for those insights. I really appreciate that. I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Can you share an example of a standout event that you've worked on and how it impacted the practice's growth or brand?
Okay. Oh God, there's so many. I mean, we literally do probably about 100 events a year, but the standout one for us that we absolutely adore working on, which we've done for 4 years in a row, is Dr. Renee Burke's events. And for her practice, we do what we call the exposure event. So we do her one big giant patient appreciation event every year, and it's coming up in November. But the first one we did for her, we actually did at the end of her rebrand. So Dr. Burke owns a 14,000 square foot practice. She's a plastic surgeon, but she has a huge med spa.
Mm-hmm.
And about 4 years ago, she moved and renovated her practice. And so the first exposure event we did for her was her grand opening, when she was relaunching her new brand. And that event was called Modern Beauty. So it was themed. One of the things I think is really great is theming your events, because that helps create FOMO, create, excitement, create a persona and a certain set of expectations about how you're going to come to that event. It was all supportive of her brand, glossy, beautiful, whimsical, creative, sophisticated, all the things that Dr. Burke stands for. This event was so sexy. She had 300 attendees at that event, and she cleared well into the six figures in revenue. And we've done that same event every single year in November. The next year it was Fiesta. And then the following year, last year, it was Paris. And oh my God, I mean, go out to her Instagram. It's anchored to the top of her page. If you want to see an amazing transformation for her practice, look at that event. It had more attendees, 400 attendees, than it had RSVPs. She only had 350 RSVPs, 400 people showed up. But these events every year are brand builders for her. The comments that come in after the event, they're not like, thanks for saving me a buck. I love, how you, gave me a special. They're all about, oh my God, we loved your shoes. We loved make no mistake. She makes money at these events, clears well into the six figures, but they're about her brand and thank you for making a magical night. And so it's such a brand builder, and it really has transformed the way that I think her patients perceive the practice and what she does for patient appreciation. And they're just gorgeous. This year's, I can't leak the theme, but our team here is so revved up to do this theme. We just can't wait. It's going to be so spectacular. So that's my favorite. And you can actually go out to Renee Burke's Instagram and see her Paris event.
Will do. Will do. This is the time in the show where I ask you for your Ailm Essential Insight. Tami, what is one takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with as they head into their week at their busy practice?
So summer is one of the slower seasons in aesthetics. And we often find that practices really turn to paying attention to marketing during the summer, because sometimes it can get put on the back burner when things get busy. Also, this is why I think this is a kernel for practices. The best time, in my opinion, for events is in the fall. Some of our biggest events for practices have happened in September and October and the very early parts of November for so many reasons. Patients are thinking about looking great for the holidays. They're thinking about gifting for their friends, where gift cards can be an amazing revenue generator at your events. And, they're just in a festive, kind of spend money, attitude and flavor. And so summer is the time to really sit down. If we're going to devote enough time to a really strong marketing plan for a great event in the fall, you really need to start now to do that. And so that would be my bit of advice. If you're planning on having a great event, September, October, November, put your marketing plan together now, make the most of it. And it is a huge revenue shot in the arm for you to finish up the year with.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great insight. It has been such a pleasure to have you on the show for a couple different reasons. One, we've met before. I've seen you speak at recently in Beverly Hills. We were speaking at the same event. When you know somebody or you've had conversations with somebody, it's one thing. But in the essence of networking, when I get to have somebody on the show, I get to do a little research about them, and then I get to dive down into what really makes them great. And I've really appreciated this because I think you know how much I love branding and how important I think branding is, because I think marketing is just noise without branding. So I've appreciated learning all of this. I've appreciated having this conversation, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, well, very much appreciated. Thank you for having us. It's, again, an honor.
Please give us a like and subscribe to stay up to date with the Ailm Practice Education Series.